The maintenance tunnels beneath mining station Kepler-7 always smelled like recycled air and industrial lubricants. But Marcus Webb had grown used to it over the past 8 months. He wiped his hands on his work coveralls, admiring the newly repaired atmospheric processor that hung quietly in the cramped space. Another successful fix to add to his growing reputation as the station's miracle worker. Marcus hadn't intended to become the go-to engineer for impossible repairs. When he'd signed up for this remote assignment, he'd simply wanted to escape the crowded cities of Earth and make enough credits to pay off his engineering degree. The isolation of Kepler-7, orbiting a distant star with only 300 inhabitants, from a dozen different species, had seemed like the perfect solution. What he hadn't expected was how much he'd come to love the challenge of working with alien technology, each species bringing their own approach to engineering and design. The Torvin favored elegant, flowing systems that seemed to grow, rather than be built. The Kithara preferred brutal efficiency with multiple redundancies. And the Selenites, well, Marcus had yet to work on any Selenite technology, though he'd heard their systems were works of art as much as function. He gathered his tools and climbed out of the maintenance shaft, emerging into the station's central plaza. The artificial day cycle was transitioning to evening, bathing the curved walls and hanging gardens in warm golden light. Various beings moved through the space with the casual familiarity of people who'd made this remote outpost their home. That's when he saw her. She stood near the central fountain, tall and graceful, in a way that made everyone else seem to move in slow motion. At nearly 7 feet in height, she possessed an otherworldly elegance that immediately marked her as Selenite. Her skin held a soft pearl-like luminescence, as if lit from within by starlight itself. She wore flowing robes of deep midnight blue that seemed to shift and shimmer with each movement. But it was her hair that truly captured Marcus's attention and stopped him in his tracks. Where humans had simple hair, she possessed something far more extraordinary. Cascading down her back were strands that looked like captured moonbeams, each one shifting between silver, pale blue, and soft white. As she moved, patterns of light danced through the luminescent strands, creating an ever-changing display of subtle beauty that seemed to pulse with its own inner rhythm. Marcus found himself staring, tools forgotten in his hands. He'd seen images of Selenites before, but none had prepared him for the reality of witnessing their famous light hair in person. It was mesmerizing, like watching Aurora Borealis flow in slow motion. The Selenite woman turned, as if sensing his gaze, and their eyes met across the plaza. Hers were the color of deep amethyst, holding depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. For a moment, time seemed suspended between them, and Marcus felt an odd tingling sensation, as if the air itself had become charged with electricity. She approached with fluid grace, her movements so smooth she seemed to glide rather than walk. Marcus swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of his oil-stained coveralls and the smudge of grease he could feel on his cheek. "You are the human engineer," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality that made even the statement sound like a gentle melody. "Marcus Webb." "That's me," he replied, extending his hand automatically before remembering that not all species shared the human custom of handshakes. "Though I have to admit, you have me at a disadvantage. I don't believe we've been introduced." To his surprise, she studied his offered hand with curiosity before carefully taking it in her own. Her fingers were longer than his, more delicate, but he could feel surprising strength in her grip. Her skin felt warm and carried the faintest tingle of energy. "I am Zephyra Moonwhisper of the Lunar Gardens clan," she said, and even her name sounded like poetry. "I have need of your expertise. My personal transport has developed a malfunction that the station's standard technicians cannot resolve." "I'd be happy to take a look," Marcus offered, trying to maintain professional composure despite being somewhat starstruck by her ethereal beauty. What seems to be the problem? The harmony crystals that regulate the propulsion system have fallen out of sync, she explained. It requires someone with understanding of both quantum mechanics and artistic sensibility. Marcus nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure what artistic sensibility had to do with engine repair. I can definitely help with the quantum mechanics part. As for the artistic side, he gestured vaguely at his practical appearance. Zephyra tilted her head, studying him with those remarkable amethyst eyes. Do not underestimate yourself, Marcus. Webb, there is more to you than you present. Something in her tone made him look at her more closely, and he found himself captivated once again by the play of light through her hair. The pattern seemed to shift in response to her emotions, growing brighter and more complex as she spoke. Your hair, he said softly, the words slipping out before his brain could stop them. It's absolutely incredible. Like watching liquid starlight dance with captured moonbeams. I've never seen anything so beautiful. The effect of his words was immediate and dramatic. Zephyra went perfectly still, her amethyst eyes widening in what looked like shock. The patterns in her hair suddenly blazed brighter, cycling through rapid pulses of silver and blue light. Around them, other Selenites in the plaza stopped their conversations and turned to stare. Marcus felt a growing sense of unease as whispers began to spread among the onlookers. Did I say something wrong? I didn't mean to offend. You did not offend, Zephyra interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. You have done something far more significant. She stepped closer, and Marcus caught a scent like night-blooming jasmine and ozone. Among my people, to acknowledge the light patterns in one's hair, to speak of their beauty with such poetry. This is not done casually. I was just being honest, Marcus said, confused by her reaction and the growing crowd of observers. It really is beautiful. Zephyra's breathing seemed to quicken, and the light patterns in her hair began to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Marcus Webb of the human colony, she said formally, her voice carrying clearly across the plaza. You have spoken the recognition. The light bond has been awakened between us. I'm sorry, the what now? Marcus asked, though he was getting a sinking feeling that his innocent compliment had somehow triggered something significant. By Selenite law and custom, we are now bound, Zephyra continued, her eyes never leaving his. You have seen the true beauty of my essence and declared it worthy. I have accepted your recognition. We are. She paused, searching for words he would understand, promised to one another. Marcus blinked several times, certain he'd misheard. Promised? As in ... engaged. More than engaged, she said, reaching out to gently touch his face. Where her fingers made contact, he felt that same electric tingle, stronger now. Among the Selenites, the light bond is sacred. It cannot be broken once awakened. We are soul-paired Marcus Webb, destined to complete one another. The plaza around them had grown quiet, with beings of various species watching the exchange. With fascination, Marcus could hear whispered translations and excited chatter in multiple languages. Apparently, he'd just become part of some kind of interstellar romantic drama. But I didn't know, Marcus protested weakly. I was just ... being polite, appreciating beauty when I saw it. Zephyra's lips curved into a smile that was both tender and slightly predatory. Intent matters less than truth, dear Marcus. You saw what others cannot. You recognized the patterns that reflect my soul. Her smile widened. And now, willing or not, you belong to me as I belong to you. As if to emphasize her point, her hair flared with brilliant light, creating a halo effect around her that was so beautiful it took Marcus's breath away. He realized, with growing certainty, that his simple life as a maintenance engineer had just become infinitely more complicated. And despite his confusion and growing panic, He couldn't deny the strange pull he felt toward this luminous woman, as if some part of him had been waiting his entire life for this moment of recognition. The light bond, whatever it was, hummed between them like a living thing, and Marcus Webb found himself wondering if perhaps this was exactly where he was meant to be. The walk to Zephyra's private quarters felt like the longest journey of Marcus's life, though it was only 3 levels up from the plaza. The curious stares and whispered conversations of other station residents followed them through the corridors, making him acutely aware that word of their light bond was spreading rapidly through the small community. Zephyra moved beside him with that same fluid grace, but Marcus could sense an underlying tension in her posture. The patterns in her hair had settled into a steady, soft glow, but occasionally he caught flickers of more intense light, as if her emotions were struggling beneath her composed exterior. "Here," she said, activating a bioscanner beside an elegant door marked with flowing selenite script. The door whispered open, revealing quarters that took Marcus's breath away. The space was like stepping into a moonlit garden. Soft, pearl-like surfaces curved organically into one another, while bioluminescent plants created pools of gentle light throughout the room. A small waterfall trickled down one wall into a crystal-clear pool, and the ceiling displayed what appeared to be a real-time view of the cosmos, stars slowly wheeling overhead. "This is incredible," Marcus breathed, turning slowly to take it all in. "It's like being inside a work of art." Selenite spaces are designed to nurture the soul as well as the body, Zephyra explained, moving to a cabinet that seemed to grow from the wall itself. She retrieved 2 crystalline vessels filled with a softly glowing liquid. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." Marcus settled on to what appeared to be a curved bench, but felt as comfortable as the finest furniture on earth. Zephyra handed him one of the vessels, their fingers brushing in the exchange. The same electric tingle passed between them, stronger now, and he noticed her hair briefly flared in response. "What is this?" he asked, examining the luminescent drink. "Lunar nectar," she replied, sitting beside him with careful precision, maintaining just enough distance to be proper, while close enough that he could catch her jasmine and ozone scent. "It will help calm your mind and open your perceptions. You will need both for what I must tell you." Marcus took a tentative sip. The liquid tasted like honey, mixed with starlight, sweet and somehow effervescent on his tongue. Almost immediately, he felt a sense of clarity wash over him, as if a fog he hadn't realized was there had been lifted. "Better?" Zephyra asked, watching him carefully. "Much," he admitted. "Now, can you please explain what's happening to me? This light bond thing, what does it actually mean?" Zephyra's expression grew serious, her amethyst eyes reflecting the soft light of the room. "Among my people, the recognition of one's light patterns is not merely aesthetic appreciation. It is a spiritual acknowledgement of compatibility at the deepest level. When you spoke of the beauty in my hair, you were not simply commenting on appearance. You were recognizing the patterns that represent my soul, my essence, my very being." "But I didn't know that," Marcus protested gently. "Doesn't intent matter?" "Intent shapes the strength of the bond, but recognition itself is truth," she explained, setting down her vessel and turning to face him more directly. "You saw what many cannot. The patterns in our hair are unique to each individual, changing with our emotions, our health, our spiritual state. They are ... How do you say windows to our inner selves?" Marcus looked at her hair, now pulsing with gentle waves of silver and blue. "And I somehow ... recognized yours?" "More than recognized. You described them with poetry that resonated with their actual meaning." Her voice grew softer. "You spoke of liquid starlight and captured moonbeams. These are the exact metaphors our oldest texts use to describe the patterns of a soul in harmony." A chill ran down Marcus's spine. That's impossible." I couldn't have known that. The heart knows what the mind does not, Zephyra said simply. This is why the light bond is considered sacred among my people. It cannot be faked or forced. It simply ... is. Before Marcus could respond, a sharp chime echoed through the quarters. Zephyra's expression immediately shifted to one of concern, and the patterns in her hair began cycling more rapidly through darker hues. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked. "Someone approaches who should not be here," she said, rising gracefully and moving to activate a wall panel. A holographic display showed the corridor outside her quarters, where a tall selenite male was striding purposefully toward her door. This newcomer was clearly of the same species as Zephyra, but where she possessed ethereal grace, he radiated commanding presence. His hair was shorter than hers, the light patterns sharp and angular, pulsing with aggressive silver-white light. He wore what appeared to be formal robes in deep purple, marked with insignia that spoke of high rank or noble birth. "Who is he?" Marcus asked, though something in Zephyra's posture already suggested the answer wouldn't be pleasant. "Thane Silverstorm," she said quietly. "My intended betrothed." Marcus felt as if the bottom had dropped out of his stomach. "You're what?" The door chimed imperiously, followed by a voice speaking in the flowing, musical language of the Selenites. Even without understanding the words, Marcus could hear the barely controlled anger in the tone. "He demands entry," Zephyra translated. "He has heard of the light bond." "Maybe I should leave," Marcus suggested, starting to rise. "No." Zephyra's hand on his arm stopped him, her touch sending that familiar electric sensation through his skin. "You are part of this now. Running will solve nothing." She moved to the door and spoke a command in Selenite. The portal slid open, revealing Thane Silverstorm in all his intimidating glory. Up close, Marcus could see that the male Selenite was even taller than Zephyra, perhaps 7.5 feet, with a build that suggested both elegance and considerable physical power. Thane's amethyst eyes, darker than Zephyra's, immediately fixed on Marcus with unconcealed hostility. When he spoke, his voice was deep and resonant, but Marcus didn't need a translation to understand the disdain in his tone. "Thane Silverstorm of the Storm Crown clan," Zephyra said formally. "This is Marcus Webb, the human engineer who has awakened. The light bond with me." Thane's response was a rapid stream of selenite that made Zephyra's hair flare with defensive patterns. The exchange grew increasingly heated, with Thane gesturing dismissively toward Marcus several times. "What's he saying?" Marcus asked. "He claims the light bond is impossible," Zephyra translated, her voice tight with controlled anger. "He says humans are too primitive to achieve true recognition. He demands I renounce the bond and fulfill my obligations to our arrangement." "What? Arrangement?" Marcus asked, though he was beginning to understand. "Our families arranged our betrothal when we were younglings," Zephyra explained, never taking her eyes off Thane. "It was intended to unite two powerful bloodlines and strengthen our people." Thane spoke again, his tone growing more commanding. This time, Zephyra's entire body tensed, and her hair blazed with indignant light. "He invokes the trial of hearts," she said quietly. "Which is an ancient rite. If the light bond is challenged, the bonded male must prove his worthiness through 3 trials. If he succeeds, the bond is recognized by all. If he fails—" She turned to meet Marcus's eyes. "The bond is declared false, and I must honor my original betrothal." Marcus felt his mouth go dry. "And if I refuse to participate, then you forfeit by default, and the outcome is the same." Thane spoke again, this time directly to Marcus, his meaning clear despite the language barrier. "He says you have until tomorrow's dawn to decide," Zephyra translated. "The trials will be held in the traditional manner, overseen by the station's Selenite community." "What do these trials involve?" Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. The trial of mind, the trial of heart, and the trial of soul. Sapphira said, each tests a different aspect of worthiness for the light bond. Thane said something else, shorter this time, with a tone that suggested finality. He says, Sapphira's voice was barely above a whisper, that no human could possibly understand the depths required for true bonding with the selenite. He calls you. A curious accident, nothing more. Something in Marcus stirred at those words, a spark of defiance that surprised him with its intensity. He stood, facing the imposing selenite noble, despite the significant height difference. Tell him, Marcus, said clearly, that this curious accident accepts his challenge. Thane's eyebrows rose slightly, as if he hadn't expected the small human to show such boldness. Sapphira translated rapidly, and Thane's response came with what might have been grudging respect. He says the trials will begin at dawn in the ceremonial chamber, Sapphira said, and that he looks forward to witnessing your inevitable failure. With that, Thane turned and strode away, leaving Marcus and Sapphira alone with the weight of what had just been set in motion. You shouldn't have accepted, Sapphira said softly, but Marcus caught something in her voice that might have been admiration. The trials are designed for selenites, by selenites. They test things that humans might not even understand. Maybe, Marcus said, surprised by his own calm. But I meant what I said earlier. Your hair, Doc, the patterns. They really are beautiful. If that recognition means something to your people, then maybe it means something to me, too. Sapphira stepped closer, close enough that he could see the complex interplay of light and shadow in her luminescent hair. You could be risking your life for something you don't fully understand. Couldn't you say the same about falling in love? Marcus replied, then paused, startled by his own words. I mean, not that I'm saying I'm in love. Just that, Sapphira's smile was radiant, her hair blazing with warm golden light. The heart knows what the mind does not, she repeated softly, echoing her earlier words. Perhaps that is exactly what you are saying. As she leaned closer, Marcus realized that win or lose, his life had irrevocably changed the moment he'd recognized the beauty in her luminescent hair. Tomorrow would bring trials he couldn't imagine, but tonight, tonight, he was exactly where he belonged. Dawn came too quickly for Marcus, who had spent most of the night in Sapphira's quarters learning about selenite culture, customs, and what little she could tell him about the trials without violating ancient protocols. The lunar nectar had kept his mind sharp, but his body still felt the weight of impending challenge as they made their way to the ceremonial chamber. Deep within the station, the chamber itself was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Carved from what appeared to be a single massive crystal, the space pulsed with its own inner light that responded to the presence of selenites. Geometric patterns covered every surface, shifting and flowing like living art. At the center stood a raised dais surrounded by tiered seating where members of the station's selenite community had gathered to witness the trials. There are more here than I expected, Sapphira murmured, her hair flickering with nervous energy. Word has spread beyond our station. Some have traveled from other outposts to witness this. Marcus counted nearly 50 selenites in the chamber, their combined hair light creating an aurora-like display across the crystal walls. At the center of attention stood Thane, resplendent in ceremonial robes that seemed to be cut from starlight itself. Beside him waited another figure that made Marcus's breath catch. She was ancient even by selenite standards, her hair no longer showing active patterns, but instead glowing with a steady, profound radiance that spoke of deep wisdom. Her robes were simple white, but she carried herself with an authority that made even Thane step back respectfully. Elder Celestin, Sapphira whispered. The keeper of laws? I did not expect her to preside. The elderly Selenite raised her hand, and the chamber fell silent. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the space, despite its apparent frailty. We gathered to witness the trial of hearts, invoked by Thane Silverstone to challenge the light bond claimed between Zephyra Moonwhisper and the human Marcus Webb. Her amethyst eyes, clouded with age but still sharp, fixed on Marcus. Human, do you understand the magnitude of what you have claimed? I understand that I recognized something beautiful and true in Zephyra, Marcus replied, his voice steadier than he felt. And I understand that your people believe this recognition means something significant. I may not fully comprehend all the implications, but I'm willing to prove the sincerity of what I felt. Elder Celestin nodded slowly. Honesty in ignorance is preferable to knowledge in deception. Very well. The first trial shall commence. This is the trial of mind, where you must demonstrate understanding not of facts, but of essence. The chamber's floor began to shift, crystal surfaces rearranging themselves into a complex three-dimensional puzzle. Geometric shapes floated in mid-air, pulsing with different colors and intensities. Marcus stared at the display, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. You must create harmony, Elder Celestin explained. Each pattern represents a different aspect of Selenite philosophy. Mind, heart, soul, duty, passion, wisdom, growth, and sacrifice. You must arrange them so that they resonate in perfect balance. Marcus approached the floating shapes cautiously. Each one hummed with a different tone when he got near and touching. Them caused ripples of light to spread through the crystal chamber. The watching Selenites murmured among themselves, their hair patterns creating a constantly shifting light show of anticipation and judgment. This is impossible, Thane said dismissively. These concepts take years to understand, lifetimes to master. How can a human hope to comprehend the balance of our souls? But Marcus was studying the patterns differently. His engineering background had taught him to see systems, to understand how different components needed to work together to create harmony. He began to move the shapes, listening not just to their individual tones, but to how they harmonized with each other. The pattern he created wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of the traditional circular arrangement that Selenites typically favored, Marcus built something that resembled a double helix, the shapes spiraling around each other in an ascending pattern that seemed to dance with light. Fascinating. Elder Celestin murmured as the chamber filled with a resonant chord that made the crystal walls sing. You have created harmony, but not as we have ever seen it. Explain your reasoning. Marcus took a deep breath. Your traditional arrangement assumes that all aspects of the self can be perfectly balanced, held in static equilibrium. But nothing alive stays still. The pattern I've created allows for growth, for change, for the eternal dance between opposing forces. Mind and heart spiral together. Soul and duty support each other. Passion and wisdom check each other's excesses. It's not perfect balance, it's living balance. The chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, Elder Celestin began to smile. In 7 centuries of overseeing trials, I have never heard such insight from one so young, of any species. You passed the trial of mind, Marcus Webb. Thane's expression showed genuine surprise. But surely the trial tests understanding of essence, not memorization of tradition. Elder Celestin cut him off gently. The human has shown us a new way to perceive ancient truths. That is understanding at its deepest level. As the first trial apparatus dissolved back into the chamber floor, Marcus felt a surge of relief. But looking at the Selenite faces around him, he realized his success had raised the stakes rather than lowered them. What had been casual dismissal in many expressions had transformed into serious consideration. The second trial will be held at midday, Elder Celestin announced. The trial of heart, where emotional truth cannot be hidden. Prepare yourselves. As the crowd began to disperse, Zephyra approached Marcus, her hair blazing with pride and excitement. "That was incredible," she said softly. "The pattern you created, it's being discussed already. Some of the elders are calling it revolutionary." "I just tried to think about how systems actually work," Marcus replied, though he was pleased. Her reaction. "Living systems are never truly static." "Exactly," she said, reaching out to touch his hand. The electric sensation was stronger now, and Marcus noticed that several nearby Selenites glanced at them when it happened, their hair patterns shifting with interest. "You're beginning to understand us in ways that even some of our own people don't." Thane approached them, his expression unreadable. When he spoke, it was directly to Marcus, and this time he used heavily accented but understandable standard. "I underestimated you, human Marcus," he said formally. "Your success in the first trial was ... unexpected, but the trial of heart will reveal truths that cannot be reasoned away. We shall see if your connection to Zephyra is as deep as your clever mind." "Looking forward to it," Marcus replied, meeting. The taller beings gazed steadily. After Thane departed, Zephyra led Marcus to a quiet alcove within the chamber. "There's something you should know about the trial of heart," she said, her voice low and urgent. "It will reveal not just your emotions, but mine as well. Everyone present will be able to see exactly what we feel for each other, how strong the bond truly is." "Is that a problem?" Marcus asked. "It means I won't be able to hide anything," she replied, her hair cycling through uncertain patterns. "My duty to Thane, my attraction to you, my fears about the future of my people. All of it will be visible to everyone present." Marcus took her hands in his, feeling that familiar electric connection. "Then maybe it's time to stop hiding. Maybe it's time for both of us to be completely honest about what we're feeling." Zephyra's amethyst eyes searched his face. "And what are you feeling, Marcus Webb?" "That I've never met anyone like you," he said honestly. "That when I look at you, something in me recognizes something in you that goes deeper than species or culture. That maybe, just maybe, falling into this situation was the best accident of my life." Her hair blazed with golden light. "And when?" She smiled. Marcus felt as if he were seeing a star being born. "The trial of heart will reveal if what we feel is real," she said softly. "Are you prepared for everyone to see the truth?" Marcus thought about it for a moment, then nodded. "I think the truth is exactly what we need right now." As they prepared for the second trial, neither of them noticed Elder Celestin watching. From the shadows, her ancient eyes bright with interest. The first trial had been about understanding, but the trial of heart would reveal something far more dangerous to the established order: whether a human and a Selenite could truly love each other across the vast gulf of species and culture. And if they could, it would change everything for both their peoples.